Are you truly happy with your own life? Because we can pretend for a long time that we're fine when we're actually not fine. And it takes a lot of courage to actually admit that, okay, I'm not fine and I want more.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Seeds of Elegance. This is the podcast of Elegance Lab, my endeavor for personal systems and social change. And I want to just give you a quick intro and then I'll introduce my guest today. So, with Elegance Lab, I want you to be able to listen to these interviews, but actually have your life start to change. I want you to be able to wake up to wonder. And the people who I will have on this specific interview series are all people I consider mischief makers. I also like to work with mischief makers to help them make magic happen because the future depends on those who challenge the rules. And today, our mischief maker is going to be Tímea Kovács Thompson. She is a fellow empowerment and intimacy coach and trained with me via a love, sex, and relationships coaching program this year. And she's also someone who directly held space for me as I was going through a major transition in the program and in my own personal experience of this work, where I really needed to get in touch with my anger and was struggling to do so. So we will get further into that a little bit down the road. But I just first want to say welcome to me. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you. I'm glad to have this space.
So I want to ask about your last name. What are the roots of your last name? Where are you coming from today as you hop on this call as well?
Well, I was born in Hungary, but I live in Wales now in the UK.
Beautiful. And since we came together via a program that was about uplifting the feminine, tell me about your experience growing up and what were you taught about being a woman, what femininity is, what sexuality is? Were you connected to these things? Did you have positive views of these things?
Yeah, well, that's a big question. For me, growing up, I actually didn't have any kind of guidance around what femininity was, to a point that every woman I've seen around, they were just so deeply disturbed and kind of unhealthy. I was really put off what I thought was meant to be a woman. So I decided in a young age that I don't want to be a woman. I actually much prefer pretending I'm a man, because men were nicer to me. They were nicer to be around. They were just so simple. There was no judgment from them. There was no kind of abuse, and just like that spiteful nastiness wasn't coming from the men. They were just welcoming. So I literally just completely said no. Femininity, I don't want anything to do with it.
What was the situation with your mother, your father, is that the roots you're talking of not having any guidance around it, or was it also coming from siblings or extended family?
Well, with my mom, like she was really cold and distant. I could never ever relate to her. Like she just didn't seem like her feelings were not there for me. And I think you need to have the feelings in a person so you can relate to them. Otherwise, you just become very mechanic. And I always remember I had that bond with my father. Like we had a very deep, loving bond, but none with my mom. And they broke up when I was 7, and my mom became sick when I was 9, and so like from that point, I literally lost much of a connection with her, because she had like this. It wasn't just like an illness; it was like a long-term disease, but eventually killed her. And then my dad remarried, and I ended up living with them. And that person who was with him, she was really, really nice at the start. Like I really wanted her affection, and she was giving me affection, and I wanted to be her daughter. She wanted my dad, so she was giving me all the affection and kind of like inviting me. And I remember like almost like being tricked. Like I wanted to call her a mom, and she allowed me to call her a mom, and I was really happy. Like finally, I felt like I have a mom. And then all of a sudden, like in 1 year on in the in our relationship, she just like flipped, and she just started really abusing me emotionally and mentally, and like telling me she's she doesn't want me to call her a mom anymore, because for no reason. Like, I didn't do anything. She was just like, I think that's what you call narcissism. And to be fair, I think it's a bit overused word, but like, she was just playing out her own trauma, her own kind of childhood on me, and over again she would trick me out to be affectionate, and then she would, like, like, cut off my head, and then, like, on and on, and this was going on for such a long time. I just learned to put so many walls around me that like, nothing could ever affect me anymore. And I'm a very, very sensitive person, and I've gone numb. Like, you could do anything to me, I was not feeling it. Whatever, I would survive anything. So me, like, those are the kind of feminine role models I had, and I did not want to do anything with them. To answer your question.
Thank you. I am someone who did grow up with a mom who I deeply treasured and loved, but it's become really apparent to me over my life how different the women in my life who have had narcissistic mothers or very challenging relationships with their moms have been affected by that. How long did that relationship continue of, I'm going to give you love, I'll take it away. I'll give you love, I'll take it away. And what's an example of that in any year?
I actually got kicked out of the place by her. Like, she's packed up my shit, and I was like, leave. Like, she was like, emotionally blackmailing me that she wants me to leave. And she did it so many times that I was like, well, fuck this shit. I'm probably better off leaving. When I was 17, something like that, I think. And then I moved away, and it was like so hard decision to do for me. Like, I took everything I had in my strength to move away. It was like breaking away,
Were you
from
in
that.
Wales at this time, or were you in Hungary still?
I was in Hungary. Yeah, I grew up there, and yeah, and so that's how long it lasted. As long I lived with them, but even after that, I had this grip. Her control was in my life, and even today I'm still working on taking her out of me in a
Yeah.
way.
How did you end up moving from this state of, I'd rather just hang out with the men, I actually feel accepted there, these core mother figures in my life, one is sick, one is abusing me, I don't trust women, into a place where you've decided to join a program with majority women or non-binary people and choosing to actually study empowerment and intimacy and work specifically with women on these issues? Where was the change? What happened?
Well, what happened is, when I was living in Wales already, a couple of years ago, actually, I started getting sick, and like, all of a sudden my life was telling me that I literally cannot carry on like this anymore. Like, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I couldn't, like, my skin was going out in all these rashes, and what else? Like, I couldn't even breathe when I lie down. Like, my asthma would come out so bad that I just literally couldn't be anymore. And I went to see all the doctors, and they're like, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with you." And that was exactly the same age when my mom got sick, and I started really freaking out that I'm gonna be, like, have the same kind of fate as what she had. I was here we have a farm, like a small holding now, with my partner at the time, and yeah, it was just like, that's it. So I started looking for alternatives, and I found breathwork and psychedelics, and yeah, it just blew my mind. Like, the first moment I started doing my breathwork, I was like terrified, and then I started crying, and I couldn't stop crying for like 2 years, because before that I couldn't cry. Like, I just totally shut that part of me away. But the breathwork really awakened that part of me again, when I was just purging. Like, I was holding so much that it just had to come out, and yeah, and then I was looking more and more into this kind of healing.
But I also want to name for a minute, because there's breathwork, even for me, was a relatively new concept. And this past year, I always had been exposed to yoga and to exercise and to fitness, but getting into breathwork was something new entirely. And so I want to ask you how you define it, how you found it, But I want to speak for a minute to people who are I'm currently in East Lansing, Michigan. Like I've never heard another person say breath work in this community yet that I know. Will change that. But the best that that I would want to introduce and have people begin to know as I open up to the concept of breath work is there's a saying that like the reason that we love to smoke cigarettes, not weed, but cigarettes, is not just because of the nicotine, but of the act of slowing down and the act of breathing. And in a culture that is so nonstop, there's such difficulty in actually getting ourselves to pause and connect with our own being. So for me, breath work is this way of you're literally connecting with your breath, you're shifting your intake of air and oxygen, and I'll have other people on here who can really talk more about the mental effects of that. But in addition, you're starting to activate and pull forth and connect to these places that actually matter to you. And if you choose to connect it to that, you can really pull forth more and more of yourself onto the surface that gets covered when we're going through our day, holding our breath, anxiety comes, the feeling of depression comes, feeling of meaninglessness comes, feeling of hopelessness comes, and we hold our breath, we clench, we hold, we shut down. And then oftentimes the drug, the drink, whatever is the one moment where we let ourselves start to relax. So starting to work with breath is this invitation to actually entering into these states within ourself in a very intimate way and a little bit more personal than even for me, like meditation, which invites you into stillness, can be very hard if you're going through a very active mind or very deep-seated trauma. And breath work can give you that access point to stillness without asking your whole system to suddenly calm down when it already feels traumatized. I'm curious for you, like how you define it, how you understand it, and how you did go from, maybe weed or another means to I'm going to actually try this, or did you find someone who introduced you? What did that look like?
I never had that kind of guidance in my life ever, and so but I always had a very good intuition. Like I always know what's right, where to go, where to find the answers, and whenever it's like I feel stuck, like it can be painful, but usually something will pop up in my head, and I just have to follow that. So it was all just looking for the internet and finding out what draws me in, and that's it. That
Wow,
simple.
beautiful.
And I also want to say to that, when how you talk about how we are like stuck in this rush cycle.
Yeah.
Growing up, actually, I remember I was like, I don't want that. Everybody's just miserable. Like I don't want that. And 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 I tried very hard, and I actually succeeded so well that I'm not gonna go into that cycle. No,
Mm.
if I have to do that, and that's what life means, that I don't want to. I don't want to stay alive and do that. Just no, that's not life. It just breaks people, literally.
One thing in life is actually knowing that when we're a kid, and then another thing is actually trying to live as an adult and stay connected to that feeling. So I want to name your intuition for a moment. When you look at your intuition and how it's guided you and how it's guided you through incredibly difficult things, what are some ways that you have seen your intuition show up for you? Maybe a couple moments that were very challenging that your intuition helped guide you through when it did not feel like there was an immediate answer or an immediate guide. And what are you grateful for with your intuition?
Well, my intuition comes in a form of knowing. I just know what I need to do, and what is tricky is following that through, because usually it's a knowing from your heart, right? But your mind will come in and give you all the reasons why you shouldn't be following that, right? And so for me, it was very much leaning into my own power, my own truth, and just knowing what I really want and why I want that. And
Mm,
even though it gives me anxiety, even though I'm uncomfortable, that doesn't mean that I shouldn't be following it. Actually, the more fear coming up with the idea or the impulse to do something, the more you have to go towards that. So
mm,
it's like a learning to trust your own body and your own self, no matter what, because
yeah.
sometimes everybody will be telling you you are bloody crazy. Why are you doing that? And nobody does that. So you just have to go with what you have, and sometimes it can be very, very difficult because you got no support, nobody there except just little voice standing in your body that I just have to do that. I don't know why, but I just have to do that.
Where have you seen that show up for you? Like, when has that little voice shown up and created the largest change in your life?
Oh, Jesus, I don't know, a lot, but maybe since I found breathwork and my own healing, I think that was a big change of going for it. And then I don't think I have like one major thing. It was just lots of little decisions. Like before, I couldn't accept any help from anybody because I was always alone in myself, and I didn't even know how to find support. So actually reaching out, because I studied with the modern mystery school to start with, and to reach out to them to ask for help and guidance was a huge step for me. And I picked up the phone
Mm,
and I talked to them, and immediately I felt like this love, this warmth spread over my body for no reason whatever. It's just that I did follow through my intuition, and I like stepped
mm,
into where I need to go. And when I
mm,
went there and received the healings, it was just mind blowing. And then and through going to a healing modality called Kabbalah with them, I wrote down, because you kind of like have this kind of wish list of what you want, and I wrote down there that I want to heal my sexuality and my femininity. And through that, I got pointed towards Tantra to Layla, and that's why I'm here, because I kept following the crumbs.
beautiful. And I realized, because I love intuition so much, that I was like, let me uplift your intuition. But you were in the middle of talking about this journey beginning when you were sick. So what happened with your sickness on a physical level? What was happening as you're following these breadcrumbs, as you're getting into breath work, psychedelics, and naming your desire? I also want to say that, because you found these spaces, but you didn't just um, find them and stay. You allowed them to open you to the next thing that you wanted, which was this femininity, this openness to femininity and sexuality. What was happening through your physical body through this time? And physical body, emotional body, mental body, your thoughts, your feelings. What and how many years are we talking? Is this little breadcrumb trail opening up over?
Yeah, well, I don't think many people will believe me, but what actually happened is, the moment I started doing the breath work, my problem went away like that. Thing, everything all of a sudden stopped, and I started purging and crying and healing, and I was fine. And like I wasn't just fine. Like it opened up more, like really deep places in myself, all the places I didn't even know I had. All the darkness, all the depression, all the anxiety, but I moved through it. Like all of a sudden, once I started that process, I just knew what I had to do and how I need to heal, and yeah, I just have this really strong inner guidance of how I need to heal myself. And yeah, so the moment I started the breath work, my physical problems went away. And I actually, that was maybe 2.5 years ago. And I always suffered from asthma from a very young age, when, you literally can't breathe because you feel so unsafe to be and express that your throat will close and you're like, you just can't breathe. And I had that problem for a long time. And in this past year, I literally healed my own asthma from clearing my trauma. So,
Wow.
yeah.
I want to give a moment of pause for that. And I want to also ask about purging and how you define purging and what that is. And also what it is to actually clear, when you're talking about that you had this year of clearing trauma, what that looks like. Like you mentioned, your asthma literally changing. What about your emotional and energetic state? How have you felt that change through these experiences?
Yeah. Well, for me, like that moment when it all started with that one breath work, it was like you just broke like a super full, like maybe balloon, you could call it that, and there was no stopping it from that point. So it was just all coming out. And I think it's actually very important to carry on doing your own work, because if you don't and you try to avoid it, it will drive you crazy. Any support, it will hold you, and to to show you that it's okay, because I always had that in the knowledge that it's okay. and
Mm.
I just know what to do. Like I love that. Um, well, I'm not sure how to call it. Like the inner realm, I'm really good at it. I'm better there than I am in the physical world, in a sense. And I just have these really natural capabilities of guiding myself there and guiding other people there. So I couldn't really tell you how I do that, why it's important, or what you should do, because I just know it. It's just already there.
Mm.
But what I've seen with other people, that they really definitely need that support, that reassurance, because like you like grow up in a society where you, yeah, take the quick pills and then you make your problem go away. But this is not about making your problem go away. It's about finding the very root of your problem and literally ripping out all the toxins in your body, and purifying your body. And when I talk about purging, it can come from many forms. It can be puking, it can be crying, it can be screaming, it can be like um I don't know, just like being in a state of depression. It's just like you just allow whatever expression you have to just go out of your body, and you don't hold it. Like stop holding all that stuff inside. And that's the whole kind of essence, I think, of trauma healing, that nobody
Mm.
actually learns how to deal with your emotions and how to process things. So you don't,
Mm.
so you just like freeze it inside your own body, what happens to you. But with the trauma work, what you actually learn is how to process emotions, and how to release them and not hold them in your body, because holding all that is literally what makes you sick, what makes you so tired, what makes you miserable. And
Mm.
this is a reason why children are so happy, right? Because they just let it go. It just goes through them. They express, they cry, they scream, they have a temper tantrum, and they fine, right? But we don't do that. We just learn to like freeze it all inside you, because I don't know why, because nobody teaches you how to do it, or you've been like humiliated for it when you grow up. In the teenage years, I think, are very essential for that. And then that becomes the normal. And yeah, and then we just stuck in this state of, you're not allowed to feel. You don't even know how you feel. You don't even know how you feel about being in a certain situation. And that for me came into uh, I had a problem with that, not even knowing how to say yes, not even how, yeah, not even knowing how to say yes and no, because I was always forced to comply. Like I just had to go
Mm.
along with it. And when you leave your home and you stuck, like, engage with other people, like I was sexually abused because of that, because I didn't even know I can say no, right?
Mm.
And yeah, and that as well, like I didn't know how to process that. I totally blanked it out. Like I didn't even feel it. It can be that bad. And then I'm pretty convinced that that made me infertile for long years. And through trauma healing, I actually healed that as well. And I had a baby, which I never even thought I would have. But it just happened, you know? It
Mm.
just happened. And I didn't try to make it happen. I just followed the crumbs. And they just, it's like the ocean. You just go wherever the ocean takes you.
Mm. Congratulations on having a baby and also doing this work through this early process of motherhood. And I wanted to ask about the fear that people hold of actually going to this deeper state. And just to be vulnerable, I can talk about something that like we had in a moment this year while we were coaching each other. As I was starting to move into my anger was starting to come up. I'm still in a process of learning how to work with it. But it was coming in a way that was so strong that I was in my traditional way that I deal with it, which is to push it down. And that's one of the most tricky states, as you can't tell, because you're so patterned in your cycles that you can't even see it. And we actually did an entire coaching session where I was trying to push it, trying to push it, trying to push it. And then we get to the end and you could just tell, right? And
Yeah.
you're like, what do you actually need? What do you need? And I was like, I need to be like, until I'm like, I need to be angry. And you were able to see that in me. So I just want you to like speak to the fear that people have of actually opening up to these states where they would actually need to purge. Because for many people, I think we don't go to that state because we don't believe there's going to be the other side. And it's like, if I go to that state, it will kill me. And I just
Yeah.
want you to speak a little to that fear. And like, since you do say you've had this inner world that has allowed you to go there, even when no one's guiding you, what
Yeah.
encouragement do you have?
So now, see, that's difficult for me because I don't have that fear. I love going in there and I love going into my fear because it actually feels good to me. But I know other people, they're so reluctant to go there. And I find it actually sometimes really difficult to believe that why? Because for me it's not. And um I'm not really sure what to say about that
Why is it not
because
scary to you?
I don't
I mean,
know.
you
It's
might
just
not know the answer, but I'm just curious, like, what do you see? Because I'll say what I see. I see, and I'm still someone who's like, I mean, I also like going there to a degree, but I also hold a ton of fear. So I'll say what I like. For me, it's like the feeling of the thing that was able to start to help me. I'm a visual person, and I got an image for the first time being around people in this program of in the program we were a part of. I got an image of like this woman in me that was like, Libby, come out to the ocean. Like you're playing in the waves. And like, I understand that you feel like the ocean is scary, but there's all this out here. There's all this, and you can stay in the waves. The waves are fun, but like, let's see. And I remember thinking like, I would not be able to encounter like that. This woman who came to me and said that was like an embodiment of all of like you and many others who had this like, just like, I'm in my energy. I'm in my power and no one's stopping me. And I was like, where did she come from? Like, I literally don't feel like I've had her. So I can like, oh, like, I don't mind that for me. I feel like I need a lot of support, but there's so much power in like that you have been able to access that. But that's what the fear feels like to me. It feels like an ocean that I'm like, I don't know where it's going to take me. I don't know where it's
but
going to go. And I'll just
ocean,
stay.
you- the ocean is you, so there's nothing to fear. That is all I have. Like there is nothing to fear because the ocean is you, and there's nothing wrong. There's nothing bad. What is gonna happen to you? You just have to trust in you. The ocean is you, and I think just hearing you that, I think to a level as well. I have. I think people have resistance to their own greatness. Okay, so you rather stay small because it feels so comfortable instead of claiming who you are because that feels so scary. But it's
Mm.
you, and there's nothing to be afraid of.
Mm. Mm. That's real. So, but since it's an interview, we'll keep that for later. No, that's
Yeah.
beautiful. Thank you. And it is real, and it is a conundrum that the fear is the same thing as it's powerful and great in there. And I want to ask, because we are, nearing the end of this, I want to ask specifically about going through rape, sexual trauma. This is an area where people feel like if there's any way to like not go into it, then I want to come through there. If there's any way for me to be great or me to be whole without looking at that, let's go that route. Because I don't even want to look at that, because if I look at that, it's going to make me feel like I'm a victim, or in my thinking, right? I'm going to feel like I'm a victim of something. I don't want to feel like a victim. So I don't even want to go there. Can you speak about what it means, like why, if we have been victimized, it actually is important to go there, to come through?
Well, I think it's part of feeling your pain. You have been victimized, but you're actually victimizing yourself as well. So, like, just don't feel so bad about feeling sorry for yourself, because you were mistreated, and you have to feel that pain to be able to move through it. And there will come a time when you're like, okay, I'm done with feeling sorry for myself, and now I can move on. But before that, you actually do have to feel your own pain and feel how wrong it was for the people to do that to you. Whether it's sexual abuse or whether emotional abuse, whatever, you have to feel your own pain and how not right that was, how wrong that was, and only then you can move past that. But yeah, you can't go without that.
Mm.
There's no going around it. If you're trying to
Please,
that
please.
if you're trying to not feel something, then like it's like you're like fighting the ocean. Why are you fighting
Mm,
the ocean? You can never beat the ocean. You're just
mm,
making it really hard and exhaust yourself for no reason.
mm. What is the ocean? Well, you don't need to answer in like a literal term, but just like, what is the magic of actually choosing to be with pain and be with what's on the other side? What does it feel like?
What does it feel like? Well, it feels like the ocean. It feels like you are so powerful that you didn't even know. It's like you just feel this expansion. You feel unstoppable. You literally feel like a goddess. And when I first experienced it, I was like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, I feel like I could do anything. I had no idea what to do with it. And yeah, like that's it. I
What
don't
did
know
you do? Or how
what
are you
did I do.
learning? Yeah, how are you learning to hold it? That experience of the greatness.
Hmm. Well, little bits at a time, stepping into it. So I think following that little, um, like that little agitation you have inside of you, that I just want to do that. I don't know why, but I just want to do that. And the more you follow that, the more you step into your own power. So just follow that breadcrumb and don't think too much about it. Even though
Mm,
it terrifies you, just go.
mm. Okay, I want to ask one thing before we head out, which is when you think back to this child in you who knew there's, I'm not settling for this world, but who also had your spirit broken in multiple ways. What is it that you think will change in the world when you look toward how she was able to hold what she has held and what you are bringing forth in the world, what you see, people being able to actually be with their pain and being able to see themselves as an ocean? How do you think the world will be different with more of us who are able to access this power that comes to you naturally?
Well, I just want to say about spirit being broken that I think the spirit breaks when you actually kill yourself, because you just can't take that anymore. And I could
Mm.
never do that. I just, whatever happens to me, I can just keep going no matter what, forever. And I will be miserable, but I will not give up. Like, there's just a part of me who will defy, defy everybody, and I will just keep going. And how would the world look like if people would step into their power? Well, I think everybody just imagine yourself being the best version of yourself and just see how different your life would be. Like, just imagine the best version of yourself be the best possible day you can imagine. And there's no reason why you can't have that. You can have that, but you just gotta work for it. And I think if you can just imagine everybody doing that, it would be a very different place.
When you say defy, that you have been able to defy, and yet you also have been able to reconnect with your heart. I'm starting to learn the difference of like me when I'm in defiance, but I'm like still in, I can't acknowledge my pain. And and for me, what that looks like is I'm in a defiance, but I'm also in a defiance against my own self. So it's creating this like, fuck off, fuck off, fuck off, like, get away from me, get away from me, get away from me.
Yeah.
Versus like a defiance that's like, I'm defying this because fuck this system. Fuck like what we've
Yeah.
created. We can do something differently. But I'm
Yeah.
so connected to my heart. And
Yeah.
like I will love deeply. And I will tell you to fuck off, but I will also love deeply, even when I say that. Like Can you speak a little bit to like how you, like that, what that shift looks, and it looks different for everyone. It's not to be like, this is how you, this is how to be a heart-centered defiant, and this is how to just be defiant. Like there's steps, there's steps we have to take. You have to learn to say
Yeah,
no before you can say yes, right? But like, can you speak a little of that transition?
yeah. Like for me, like I mentioned it earlier, that I just know what's right and wrong. And when I was growing up, you encounter a lot of wrong because most of the shit what's going on in the society and how we treat each other and school is just wrong. And I always knew that, but nobody would listen to me because I was just a kid. And because you're just a kid, nobody's gonna listen to you, which I despise as it is. So it was just like this inner knowledge that I'm not buying that. I'm not just doing that. I can see people being miserable, and I was like, I'm not doing that. That's stupid. I'm not doing that. And and just not doing and not settling for um what you see around you and not letting that affect you. And it's not like you define yourself. It's just actually you are protecting yourself. That defiance can be a protection from being just hurt by the world around you. So by putting that defiance on in a way that I am not gonna let the sickness of the world make me just as sick as the world is. I'm gonna stay true to myself, pure in a way, and I'm gonna wait because I couldn't do it at the time. Just wait for my own time when the time was right, and then I'm gonna make a difference. But I'm gonna come from this place of heart space, like
Mm-hmm.
that. Yeah.
What are some things that you want to actually impress? Do you have um, what gender is your child? If you subscribe, like, how do you want to create a
Right.
world for your child where they can be raised in some different principles?
Yeah, well, I'm very, very, very careful about that. And I just don't want to cause him pain from my own pain, Like our unhealed trauma and our unhealed and unseen patterns can really like transmute into him because he just sees that from you. So I'm trying to like be very conscious of all my stuff and not give that to him. And I'm also very conscious of people restricting his expression, and telling him, no, don't do that and do this instead, because kids can hear no all the time. People just feel the need to restrict the kids. Like that's not parenting. You don't need to restrict your kid. You need to literally nurture him or her and let him and her grow. It's not about restriction. And you know how you can relate to a flower like femininity. No matter how much you push it, it will not open unless you give it the right environment. It's just the same with kids. It's not about restriction. It's about giving him the right environment to bloom in his own time and pace. And yeah.
Is there any other images that you could offer to someone as a little, for a breadcrumb for them knowing like what you are speaking about is meeting them? What is an image that has driven you forward?
Well, what comes to me is that picture of a child. I think everybody, if you just close your eyes and remember a child, just a young child, or maybe even remember your own childhood. They always filled with this wonder. They're just so happy and joyful naturally. Everything is just a miracle in their eyes. And we growing up lose that. We just get dull, gray, bored. And you can have the same joy and the same miracle in your eyes, the same wonder as an adult. You don't have to be miserable when you're adult. And I just want people to remember that. Just look at a child,
Mm,
see how happy they are, and compare them to yourself. Are you
mm.
happy? Are you really, really happy? Are you truly happy with your own life? Because we can pretend for a long time that we're fine when we're actually not fine. And it takes a lot of courage to actually admit that, okay, I'm not fine and I want more.
Thank you. Finally, I want to know what is it? How can people reach you? And who do you want to get to connect with this year?
I'm offering like 3 sessions for free. Who wants to try the coaching out? You can find me on Facebook or TikTok at the moment. I want to reach people who are just sick of their own lives anymore, who are ready for change, who have probably anger problems, because I'm really good with anger and anxiety,
I can
and
testify.
people who are sensitive to the world around them. I think they are the best kind of match for me. It's okay to want more and reach out. There's a lot of people who can help.
It's okay to want more. Welcome to a world with greater elegance, greater beauty, greater fun, greater wonder, greater magic. Thank you so much for sticking with us. And Tímea, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for your time and the opportunity. I'm really grateful.